The Vox Markets Podcast with Justin Waite. Nothing in this podcast is intended as investment advice, and the people in this podcast may hold positions in the stocks they talk about. Do not buy anything based solely on a tip or recommendation. Please do your own research.
Welcome to the podcast on Wednesday, the 25th of November 2020. On the podcast today, John Meyer, mining analyst and partner at SP Angel, talks about some resource companies who are positively exposed to the EV market, including Empire Metals, IronRidge Resources, Arc Minerals, Rambler Metals and Mining, Solgold, Phoenix Copper and Strategic Minerals. Also on the podcast, I have two lists for you. The top 5 most followed companies on Vox Markets in the last 24 hours and the top 5 most liked RNSs too. You can see top 10 versions of both those lists at voxmarkets.co.uk. We'll also see lots of other content. In fact, there's an article there on Xeros Technology. They received their first sales for the X-Drum. And what else is there? Sensine Health Inc.'s 5-year SRA with Hampshire Hospitals. Alba Minerals raised money there. Source Bio to scale COVID-19 testing services. In fact, worth reading. Their RNS, they're earning very good money from the COVID testing. What was it? Total revenue of around 50 million, up from 21 last year. EBITDA of 14 million, up from 3 last year. Check that out. And that's not the only thing they do, Source Bio. They've got lots of other sort of spokes to their wheel, their business wheel. Also, don't forget, on the front page there, COVID-19 index. Check that out. Biggest riser today is N4 Pharma, up 11.4%, 6.3. And biggest faller is Modern Water, down 15% to 2 pence. Check that out at voxmarkets.co.uk.
Vox Markets is an online community of investors that runs a free mobile and desktop platform that allows you to track news and updates about any UK-listed company, offering RNS push notifications, detailed charts, pricing data, and much more. Find out more at voxmarkets.co.uk/app.
And joining me on the podcast right now is John Meyer, mining analyst and partner at SP Angel. You all right, John?
Very good, thank you.
Let me tell you something, right? I'm trying to get, I like to invest in trends, mega trends. And I talk about trends that are going to last for years and get stronger, bigger. And I think one of the biggest trends around right now is the adoption of the electric vehicle, and all governments around the world saying basically no petrol, no diesel cars will be sold beyond a certain date. Now, we've moved our date to 2030, which has moved forward 10 years. So, of course, there's going to be massive demand, isn't there, on anything related to that, from people who supply the cars, for example, all the metal installed in them, copper, lithium, all that stuff, So I'm just trying to find an investment that will play out well over the next 3 to 5 years, that'll be exposed, standing in front of this theme, this trend,
Yeah, well, I mean, we see the European Commission, Markus Sefcovic, talking about the EU being battery self-sufficient by 2025. And if you look at what does this really mean, it means the EU is going to have to produce something like 450, 500 gigawatts of batteries. And that's in order to meet expected demand for around 6 million vehicles. And I think that's assuming that those vehicles are, shall we say, moderate to small size family cars. And as we know, I think there's going to be more interest and demand and probably early production of the big SUVs, the things like the Tesla Cybertruck, which use much bigger battery packs. I was looking at it this morning, the Cybertruck battery pack is a massive 200 kilowatt hours, whereas your average vehicle, and that's including small light trucks and buses and things, is 50 kilowatt hours on average. So if you're buying something smaller, a really small family car, you might be using 30 to 40 kilowatt hours. So when you add all this together, you start to run into some pretty interesting issues in terms of buying in commodities. The nickel market, for example, simply doesn't have that much new nickel in it. It's very hard to do an exact calculation, but a rough calculation, I would estimate, would require another 1 million tons of nickel a year to feed the demand for for electric vehicle batteries, and that's not including battery packs, for lithium battery packs for grid power. And there's quite a lot of that stuff going on as well. hopefully the vanadium redox batteries will take over a bit more in the grid battery power space. And let's not forget that nickel also is a very important ingredient in fuel cells. So quite a lot of people are interested in hydrogen as a new fuel source going forwards, and that hydrogen being used in fuel cells to create electricity. But of course, nickel is the current collector in those fuel cells. It's and that, so you're not going to lose nickel demand on the back of, shall we say, some replacement technology.
Yeah. Okay. So nickel. And nickel, for example, how do I get exposure to that? I mean, what companies are you got any on the radar there? Anything about? I can think about Horizonte Minerals. I know about those. Anything else?
Horizonte is one of the very few listed companies in that area. I mean, it's difficult to find these industrial metals companies.
Let's look at copper then. I mean, if you got any copper, I know that you've mentioned a few before, haven't you? Copper companies that are exposed to copper, because that's going to be a huge benefactor as well, isn't it, from EVs?
Well, for me, copper companies, Arc Minerals, Empire Metals, because of its stake in the Georgian Bolnisi copper project, Phoenix Copper, the Rambler Metals and Mining, which we just refinanced. That's very highly leveraged and actually a good turnaround situation in my view. But bear in mind, we have just completely refinanced that company and got it back on its feet again, which we're quite proud of. And let's not forget Solgold, which we're also brokered to, because Solgold has the huge Cascabel Alpala project up in Ecuador. That's a biggie, but it's going to take a few years for that one to come in. So from a sort of who's going to get into production first, well, my money would be either on Phoenix Copper or Arc Minerals. Probably Arc, because they've got a pilot plant down at one of the projects already, although that may not be the first project they put into production, but they have the plant there. They may move the ore from a higher grade project and use that plant to earn early cash flow, which would be very nice.
Yeah. Because when I'm investing, I mean, these days I'm not often investing in resource or mining companies. If I do, if there's a resource company, I want them generating cash within 12 months of my investment, so they won't have too much, time to raise more funds. They won't need to raise more funds. They have a pathway, a roadmap to that cash generation. So you're saying pretty Arc or maybe Phoenix. Obviously, Solgold, I assume, earning money anyway, aren't they?
Well, Solgold have such a huge portfolio in Ecuador, and I think the real value of Solgold is not in the Alpala project so much, but they have a new project that they're drilling at the moment where there's more copper close to surface, and I think that could easily take over as their lead project going forwards. And for me, the real value in that group is in their future discovery. Some of which I think is starting to come through. So we are watching and waiting for the new drill results and to see what comes through, because I think that's going to be pretty exciting. Yeah,
of course. But they're altogether Solgold a bigger beast, aren't they? They've what 700 million market cap? Are they running about that? I think, is that right?
Yes, they are around that. So they are a big beast. We always used to call them the Vodafone of the AIM market when they were listed on AIM. They've since moved to the standard list, but their liquidity has always been extremely good. And let's not forget Strategic Minerals, which have a couple of copper projects in South Australia. And in fact, I think those projects could come through quite quickly as well. So I don't think investors have to wait too long for some cash flow out of that. And let's not forget, Strategic Minerals already have cash flow from their magnetite tailings project in Nevada. So in New Mexico.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Marvelous stuff. And you mentioned there's some news on from Empire Mines, wasn't there, recently?
Yeah, they've just raised some money again. Because we act for so many of these mining companies on the AIM market, we were involved. But so not only are they cashed up, but the Russian joint venture partner on their projects in Georgia has expressed an interest in acquiring the Georgian assets. So they've already done a deal to sell a majority stake of those assets into a company called Candelaria, listed in Canada. That deal is for $7 million worth of Candelaria stock. if the Russians want to, the Russians have a first right of refusal. So if they want to acquire those assets, I think they'll have to pay up at least $7 million to get that. And so that wouldn't necessarily be a bad outcome for Empire Metals as things stand.
Yeah. Cool. Marvellous news. Anywhere else? You want stuff there?
Well, IronRidge Resources tell us about improved recoveries at their lithium project in Ghana. You know what? And we're talking about nickel and cobalt and copper for electric vehicles. Let's not forget about the lithium ion, or the lithium in the lithium ion batteries, which I think a lot of people just kind of overlook because we're so focused on the copper and the nickel. But there isn't going to be enough lithium to go around for all these battery developments as well. So I think projects like the IronRidge project in Ghana, like Kodal Minerals in Mali, are going to be increasingly popular. We know the Chinese are looking in detail at the Kodal Minerals project, and I think it's only a matter of time before either the Chinese or the Europeans get involved with IronRidge's project. And let's not forget Savannah Resources as well, with their project in Portugal, which of course is very well placed from a European perspective. Yeah,
exactly. Cool. Do you know what? I saw someone having an argument or a heated discussion about IronRidge on social media. Something about a photograph being taken in front of Volkswagen or something, and they're alluding to the fact there's some kind of deal going on with Volkswagen, or they're suggesting that because they took a picture there and it wasn't. Have you heard anything about that?
Well, a lot of these companies have been requested to go in and talk to the big European auto manufacturers because these companies really they're quite concerned about where the raw material supply is going to come from. Volkswagen actually stole a member of our mining research team who is now part of the group where they're buying, who's involved with the buying of these raw materials and lining the stuff up. So it's quite natural for these companies to shall we say be seen outside the front gates because there's a lot of talk going on, and I would be quite optimistic about some of these major companies somehow supporting the funding of the development of these projects going forwards, because otherwise they're going to get left out in the cold by the Chinese. China controls so much of the raw material supply chain for lithium, copper, cobalt, nickel. And if the Chinese decide they're going to withhold the supply of or even rare earths, as they have done to Europe or Japan, as they've done in the past, then suddenly you can't produce your cars. I mean, if there's one widget missing, the car doesn't go. And in fact, in this case, if you can't get the copper or the nickel or the cobalt or the lithium for the batteries, and you can't get it in the right quality that you want, then the production lines are going to grind to a halt really fast.
Yeah. Marvellous stuff. Cool. Any other news there, John, out on resource companies?
Well, Bushveld Minerals came out with their third quarter results yesterday. The results themselves are not that exciting, but the news from Infinity Energy Systems, which is in which Bushveld hold a stake, and where Bushveld have a first right of refusal for the supply of vanadium into Infinity's vanadium redox batteries, it's very interesting. So Infinity are signing up and planning new redox battery projects around the world. And
do you know what, John? Sorry to get into it. They're on my watch list on Vox Infinity, and I didn't realise what they were. They were called. What were they called? What were they previously called?
It was. I think was this one. Red Tea.
Yeah, that's right. Yes, that's it. Yes.
Yeah. So red. I mean, there was an extinction event within the market for these sorts of companies. When vanadium prices went so very high, suddenly all the redox batteries in the world were massively uneconomic. Now that vanadium prices have come back to low levels, the projects are back on. But the really clever thing is that Bushveld Minerals have developed this leasing model for vanadium. And so what that means is you can spread the cost of the vanadium over, let's say, a 20-year lifespan, because the vanadium doesn't degrade within the battery. And that means the cost of the vanadium is now a relatively minor issue relative to the cost of the whole battery. So these companies like Infinity and Enerox are able to push forwards with their projects again, and the new projects are going to use a lot of vanadium.
Yeah, very interesting. Yes. So okay, so even that there is worth looking at. Bushveld and Infinity, two other companies maybe worth putting on the watch list if you want to get exposure to EV, and that's the potential there, I suppose, isn't it?
Well, Infinity's latest project is just an 8 megawatt project, which isn't particularly big by grid energy standards. And that itself will use 40 to 44 tons of vanadium in electrolyte. And the vanadium market's just not that big. It's about 70,000 tons a year. It's so you don't have to make a lot of batteries to upset the supply-demand dynamics in the market and for prices to start going higher again. Yeah,
absolutely. Marvelous stuff. Anything else, John?
I think I feel exhausted on that.
Yes,
right now.
Well, a lot of information there, John. We just emptied your brain of all that information. So of course we've taken your energy there. But marvelous stuff, John. Thanks for that, fella, and we'll speak you next weeky.
Look forward to it. Thank you.
Okay, it's time for the top 5 most followed companies on Vox Markets in the last 24 hours. They are at 5, Argo Blockchain. Of course, that's exposed to the Bitcoin stuff like that, and that's 12.1 at the moment. Was that down 1% at the moment? Oh, odd. At 4, it is Source Bio International, down 1% to 181. At 3, Tomco Energy, non-mover, 0.48. At 2, International Consolidated Airlines, 170 is the price, up a smidge, 0.12%. And at 1, it's Rolls-Royce Holdings, down 4% to 110. Okay, time for the top 5 most liked RNSs. I put this side by side with most read as well to see what people are reading, what people are liking. At 5, Thalassa Holdings leads investment into Cornerstone FS PLC. At 4, Alba Minerals, commencement of surface trenching. At 3, Xeros Technology, first ex-drum sales in denim finishing market. At 2, Deep Verge investor presentation, corporate update. And at 1, Source Bio International, update on key COVID testing contracts. Okay, most read is it follows. At 5 is Boohoo, notice of major holdings. At 4, Mosman Oil and Gas, final results. At 3, share placing, most read. At 2, Argo Blockchain, share capital reduction. And at 1, Deep Verge investor presentation, corporate update. That's right there, most read. Check that at voxmarkets.co.uk.
The Vox Markets Podcast with Justin Waite. Nothing in this podcast is intended as investment advice, and the people in this podcast may hold positions in the stocks they talk about. Do not buy anything based solely on a tip or recommendation. Please do your own research.